Hey there, do you love comic books? Do you love searching for back issues of comics online? Do you like using spreadsheets to help determine which books you should buy? Then this video is for you. All right, so you are in for a real treat in this video. I have some what I would consider to be hardcore spreadsheet analysis regarding which comic books you should be buying from your online stores. Now, this kind of came up in my discussions. Comic Citizen on Twitter, he and I talk quite frequently about places to get books. And one of our favorite places, although he did say we probably shouldn't be talking about it anymore, is Mile High Comics. And Mile High Comics has been around since the 70s, 80s, for as long as I can remember, seeing those ads in the comics as a kid for Mile High Comics. And I never thought here in 2021, I never thought here today I'd be buying from Mile High Comics still. And I would say that the overall perception of Mile High is that they're very expensive. Everybody laughs at the prices of the books, but with their coupon code and some additional deep diving into some analysis, you can actually find really, really good books that have good value as is in near mint, but also a lot of potential value. And a lot of times when these coupon codes come out and these alerts for, 40%, 50%, 60% off, I'll kind of pull up my standard lists of Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, and start just kind of scrolling through and see, did they add any new books? And I kind of get lost. And I wanted to figure out, is there a way I can be more precise and direct with the books that I'm trying to target and create sort of a buying list or a general want list or interest list, but then using the data from sources that I love, which is Cover Price, Go Collect, and GPA, to figure out if I can come up with some formulas that would tell me which books to buy from Mile High Comics. So that's what I'm going to go through in this video, is kind of walk you through my spreadsheet analysis and how I use this data and point to some real examples, and then start filling out the sheet to kind of see how the data starts to change between eras, between bronze, copper, modern, and different books and different titles. So let's open up the spreadsheet and get started. Okay, so this is the spreadsheet that I started yesterday, and I'm going to walk you through some of the data points, and then we'll go through some real examples here of how I find these books and track them down and put them together. But essentially, I have 10 different items, 10 different rows, each representing a different book that is for sale on Mile High Comics. So the first criteria for me when buying from Mile High is to buy only books that they list as near mint. And I've talked about this on some past videos, but just to kind of recap, near mint for them is anywhere from an 8.5, and they claim all the way up to a 10.0, but realistically an 8.5 to a 9.8. They claim that a near mint book can have a small page tear, some spine ticks, and things of that nature. And they do offer a guarantee that if you buy a book from them and you send it into CGC and it gets less than an 8.5, they will offer a full refund of the book and the grading services. So, there is some risk there. I don't want to pay for near mint books if they're coming in at an 8.5. But in my overall purchase history over the last 2 years, the average grade of a book that you're getting from Mile High when you purchase as near mint is actually 9.4. So I took that information that I have, all of that grading analysis that I did. So the grading analysis, again, the grading was done by me. I am an amateur grader, but I went through and graded around 150 different books that I purchased from Mile High as near mint. And the average grade was just around 9.4. So now that we have that consistent data point, What I wanted to do is figure out between a 9.8, a 9.6, and a 9.4, how do those books scale? So what is the drop off between 9.8, 9.6, and 9.4? And then let's look at the actual values on GPA of a 9.6, of a 9.8, 9.6, 9.4, and then as well as Go Collect. Now, cover price, as you can see here, right here in column H and I, I'm just tracking the 9.8s. I'm not going through cover price and looking at all of the detail. It's actually faster for me to just grab the 9.8 and then grab the other two sources, three different tiers of values, and plugging them in. So let me explain what we're looking at here. So obviously we've got the title in column A, the issue number, and then I'm tracking the release year. And then based on the release year, it will determine the era for me. Now, the era is important to me because I want to figure out, is there a bigger drop off between a 9.8 and a 9.4 across the eras? Maybe, maybe not. We could start to speculate on that, like for a brand new book, if it pops on the market at $20, do you want to spend $18 in a 9.4, or is it a dollar bin book immediately? Is it one of those sort of online garage sale type sites, social media sites where it's like, hey, check out this cool book, but it's really only worth $1 because it's 9.4 or less in reality? So I have this era breakdown here in a separate data tab, and I'm going through platinum to modern, and I've got the start year and end year. So as the release year of the books are put in, they're categorized into one of these different eras. So once the era is determined, then what I do is I figure out the grade scaling based on that era. And this is sort of what's happening in the background as I plug in information. So I'll go over this kind of quickly, and I could certainly break this down in more detail in future videos. But essentially, based on the era, I want to see what is the drop off between 9.8 and 9.6. So this is the average drop off across all sources from a 9.8 to a 9.6. And then this is the average drop off across all sources from a 9.8 to a 9.4. So you could see there's a 68% drop in the Copper Age and a roughly 64% drop off in the Bronze Age. Now, I don't have a lot of data points yet, so starting with 10, you imagine 50, 100,000 books, we'll start to get some real data here. And then I kind of just break it down here by cover price and GPA, Go Collect, and then this is some additional summarization of my buying worksheet that goes through and summarizes all of the data here. So this is kind of what's happening in the background, but the key here is this column B. So this is for 9.86, and then the other key is column C, which is the drop off all the way down to 9.4. There's been a lot of talk about, hey, is 9.6 the real hidden value in the market right now, because the drop off seems to be 4 or 5 times less than the 9.8. So a $400 9.8 I can snatch up for $100 in a 9.6. I think those are one-offs. I really do think those are outliers. I think that when a 9.8 spikes like that, I think for a brief moment, the 9.6 and the 9.4 are undervalued technically. But what happens is it's the whole rising tide raises all boats scenario, where if a 9.8 shoots up, or maybe there's a bidding war on Heritage and that affects cover price and Go Collect, what happens is it takes a few moments for the 9.6 and 9.4 to also rise. So that's something to keep in mind, that if you see a 9.8 get out of hand real fast, that window is really short for those situations to occur where you would have a 9.8 sell more than 400 or 500% over the 9.6. Realistically, though, this is the data that we're looking at, and I'm looking for data across time, across many, many books, and across different eras to tell you really what that drop-off is. Okay, so that's enough about the background. Then I'm simply putting in data from cover price here, putting in what they're considered to be the raw value. Again, raw doesn't matter what the grade is, it's just across all grades, whatever it's selling for on eBay as a raw book. And again, those could be 2.0s, 5.0s, it doesn't matter. They could also be 9.8s, but Cover price doesn't really distinguish that because how could you? So it's just the average raw sale. And then the 9.8, as I mentioned, from cover price here, and what they're saying the 9.8 is. Go Collect is interesting. I don't want to keep beating them up, but their values are all over the place. Sometimes they're in line with GPA. So if we look at this Amazing Spider-Man 166, for example, they're saying a 9.8 is $220. GPA is saying it's $226. Cover price is saying it's $76. Then on the next one, we've got cover price and Go Collect in alignment, but GPA is saying it's $385. So how do I handle that? I do average out some of these, so I don't take cover price as the law, and I don't necessarily think Go Collect is either. GPA is probably the most realistic source in my tracking of heritage auctions. Those books typically sell right around GPA. And so I think that's really the tool that most people use, but I like to use GPA as a factor in my analysis and not necessarily the sole source. I like looking at multiple sources, getting those additional opinions. Okay, so the difference here, again, with Go Collect and GPA, so this is columns J through O, you'll see here, is I can actually very quickly grab the 9.6, the 9.4, and same thing with GPA, the 9.6 and the 9.4 values. As I put in this information, then the grade scaling values start to change. Now, why do I use that? Why is that important? Well, what I'm trying to figure out is the 9.4 slabbed, which again, if you're thinking about an average grade, so you're blindly buying 10 books from Mile High Comics, according to my data, they will average a 9.4. So, does that mean that the good value exists in buying the raws? Not all the time. So and I'll show you an example here. So if we start to look at some of these, I have additional analysis here, starting with column V, which is the raw cost difference, and that just says the difference between what Mile High is saying is their price versus the cover price raw value. So we can figure out, like, am I overpaying? Essentially, Mile High is going to be more expensive than the raw, again, because you're paying for a higher grade book. Now you have column W, which is the 9.8 to 9.4 scale value. And then some additional columns here I'll get to in a second. Now the scale value, to me, that's again based on the era. So if we're talking about here, I'm talking about bronze and I'm talking about copper for right now. And the scale value of Amazing Spider-Man 166 should be about $111. But if I go back to GPA and look at a 9.4, it's saying that it's 76. So what that tells me is the 9.4 is actually undervalued. I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but it's truly undervalued if you look at the scale. So the scale is telling you that the drop off from a $226 GPA 9.8 of Amazing Spider-Man 166 should actually be $111 and not $76. So does it make sense to buy this book from Mile High and get it slabbed? We'll go through that, but you may just want to buy a 9.4 slab right now for $76 because it has the potential to grow up to 111 based on the scale. And this is where maybe there are more 9.8s available. Maybe there's more sales of 9.8s. People are hesitant to sell the 9.4. And a lot of times you'll jump on eBay and see these and they'll be listed for $100 or $110 because people are kind of catching on. Maybe they snatch them up. So on one hand, you're looking at the 9.4 GPA value because, again, I think that's what people are looking at in terms of a price guide. But the scale is actually more important because everybody wants the 9.8, but what is the drop-off to 9.6 or 9.4? Now, I'm not including the 9.6 drop-off here because I'm specifically dealing with Mile High Comics, and we're talking about 9.4 near mint books. So in this case, again, I would say if you're looking to buy 166 raw and blindly send it in to CGC and that book comes back as a 9.4, it doesn't necessarily mean that was the wrong decision. It just means that for your money and for your time, you could have potentially tried to find a 9.4 at $76 because it is currently undervalued based on the scale. Okay, so let's move on here. I have column X, and for me, this is representing what I'm certainly willing to spend the money, but I do consider myself to be a conservative comic book investor. So to me, column X is very important. And what this means is I am taking the value of, let's go back here. So this is the GPA 9.4. So this is what the market is saying is the value, regardless of scale. And then I'm taking the mile high cost plus the factor to grade the book. So the cost here and the grading cost, which again, I have some data points here. So I'm saying the cost to grade a book, if you're going to send a book off, I usually factor this in if I'm sending 10 books at a time. So I have a whole other piece of analysis where I determine door to door, right? Including shipping. Now does not include CCS, but just door to door shipping from your hands to CGC and back to you. It's going to cost you about $26.37 to grade one book. And I have this here as data because, again, if maybe you have elite membership or something and this cost varies, it could be less for you. Maybe you like to send in 50 books at a time. So the cost would come down because the shipping involved is more or less the same or more expensive. Anyway, I can modify this as we go. So again, column X is important because it's the cost of the book for Mile High plus the cost of the book to get it graded. And then I look at the difference of the GPA 9.4 and I say, okay, so again, if I'm buying Amazing Spider-Man 166 blindly, I send it off for grading and it comes back a 9.4, it actually only cost me $24 plus the $25, which is roughly 49 something. So I stand to profit from a very, very conservative level this amount, or in some cases I could lose money. Now that's just the GPA 9.4. This is where the scale gets interesting, because if you're actually looking at books that would be undervalued based on the scale factor, and the scale, again, just as a reminder, is the drop off from a 9.8 to a 9.4, right? So what is the price difference over time across all books? And that's how you can figure out if that 9.4 slabbed is undervalued. So if you're looking at the scale, you can see a lot of these values jump. So what I'm looking at here is the conservative 9.4 GPA value versus the scale value. And it's a little bit of, I would say, a potential profit, right? So as those 9.4s and 9.6s rise while the 9.8 is rising, then this could be your potential conservative profit, I would say. Now, column Z is interesting. Well, let me jump to column AA here. So AA is a difference between the scale and the actual GPA, I would say, market value. And this is important too because I rank this. I look and see, okay, like take a look at Amazing Spider-Man 258, for instance. So this one is saying in a 9.4, you're actually going to lose money if you just go by the GPA value on ASM 258. So if that's the only piece of information you're going off of, you're going to lose money. However, if you look at the scale factor, you stand to gain, according to this small sample, the most money, which is a profit of $184. So I like to put that difference here, scale versus actual, because if you are a big believer that 9.4s and 9.6s are undervalued in the market and they will rise as the 9.8 rises, and that's kind of a target area that you want to invest in, then the scale versus actual column is important to you. Now back to column Z. This is the potential gain if the book hits a 9.8. Now this is interesting too because there are some cases, now this has not been the case recently for me personally, but I do have many cases where I've purchased near mint books from Mile High, and I was able to get a 9.8 from them, either as is or through pressing. So that's something that I want to track too, and I want to figure out, okay, based on all of this information, all of these differences, these ranges and potentials and differences and all of this great stuff, how does that help me? Well, the last piece is I rank every single one of these books in those columns, and then I basically figure out an overall score for the book. So I've got the difference between the raw costs, like which one has the smallest difference from the purchase price at Mile High to what cover price is reporting, ASM 267. So as an example, cover price is saying it's $7, and you can get it today on Mile High for 12. So that's a difference of $5. Whereas if you're looking at ASM 265, the first Silver Sable, the raw cost difference is $108. And again, what does that tell me? Maybe don't get it from Mile High. Maybe you look somewhere else. Go to eBay and search ASM 265 NM near mint. Look at some scans. Again, the data should be telling you what to do. So that's just an example of all of these ranks. They're all pretty much one-to-one except for GPA risk. Again, I'm doing this because I feel like I'm a conservative investor and I wanted to add an additional weight on the GPA risk. And this GPA risk is essentially the column that we talked about where the difference between the cost of the 9.4 plus the cost to get it graded compared to the GPA market value. So not the potential, not the scaled value, but the actual day-to-day GPA value. And then in my data column, I have a risk tolerance factor 2.5, which is just a multiplier that adds additional weight. So for example, here on 265, this is what I would consider to be a high risk, high reward book, but it's going to cost you the most. And if that book comes back miswrapped, color breaking spine ticks where you're like, gosh, is this even a 9.4? You have now assumed quite a bit of risk there. However, if it comes back and it's crispy and it's a 9.8, you could certainly get a nice windfall there. So to me, this is important because I want to buy books essentially that are extremely low risk. And it doesn't necessarily mean, dollar books. It just, there could be $1,000 book in here, but extremely, extremely low risk and try and get the highest profit, the highest reward. And I think that that's probably just fundamental investing or economics, right? You want to look at those things, look at your risk tolerance and your comfort level with spending money and investing, whether it be in collectibles or stocks or anything like that. And you want to find the lowest risk possible that will maximize your gains. So that's what I'm looking for. Now, if all of this is just crazy numbers and you don't really believe what I'm talking about, or it's like, can you just simplify this or pare it down? Absolutely. So I have this nice column here called by priority, and it's highlighted in yellow because honestly, it's really the only thing that matters. The point of this spreadsheet is to plug in some data, let it do its thing, and simply let it tell you which books you want to consider buying. Not books that you should buy. Now, I'm not speculating. I'm not offering any of that. I'm just looking at real numbers, real values that's currently happening in the market, and then letting all of these factors come in and tell you this is the book to buy. Now, before we start entering some new books, because you'll start to see these numbers change, let's just take this sample here and walk through it. So this is telling me the lower number, the better. So this is the number one priority book, and this is Amazing Spider-Man 257. So this is right at the tail end of the Bronze Age. Cover price saying it's a $12.58 book, $162.98. Go Collect says it's $210. GPA says it's $399. I want to and I capture the links on these so I can quickly refer back to the book if I'm like, really? Is that true? So let's look. This is ASM 257, where we've had a $399 90-day average. And let's look at this. Look at this graph. This is the old like dinosaur graph where, oh boy, now what happened here? This is crazy. And let's break down to 2021. 2 different slabs across 60 days sold for $399. Prior to that, it was $300, but it rose rapidly. So for me, again, the total fair market value of this book, GPA does not report on that. So what I like to do is use the 90-day average. And this is where I like to look at different sources, because the GPA 9.8 is a 90-day. The Go Collect 9.8 is of all time. So it could be 210 trending up, but it's still 210 according to what Go Collect is saying. And again, they each kind of have their own purpose. And then cover price is also different. So I look at the cover price 9.8, the Go Collect 9.8, and the GPA 9.8, and I come up with an average of $257. So that's sort of the average of that, because I don't want to take the extreme $399. Are those legit sales? I don't want to get into all of that. Again, I just have to keep it as simple as possible. But again, why is this the number one priority? Because on Mile High, you can get this for $30. Yeah. And here it is. So it's $75, but they're running a 60% off Halloween keyword coupon. Yeah. $30. So that's a priority for me, because for a $30 investment, if I slab that book and it is a 9.4, I should be able to sell it for $89. So a low risk investment where I could profit, or I could potentially get a 9.8, which has happened when you buy books from Mile High, and sell it for roughly $250. So again, a $30 purchase plus the cost to get it slabbed, right? So this is that this $32 profit would be what I would say would be the minimum profit if you were to purchase this book. So you're buying it for $30, slabbing it for $25. It's a $55 investment. Selling at a 9.4 at $89. So that's why column U is the most important column. The bid priority column is crucial. So when these keyword coupons come out, I can simply sort this whole sheet by this highlighted column, and depending on what my budget is, I can buy the top 3, the top 5, the top 10, whatever I want, but it's telling me which books to target and which books to buy, and I can either blindly use the column or start to look and see, well, here's the scale value, here's my potential for profit, and so on. Potentially if it's a 9.8. Then again, if you're looking at, I just want to maximize my reward, I don't care about the risk, well, then you'd start to look at maybe 258 or 265. So that's the analysis. I want to go through maybe some few examples of how I find these books and what I'm targeting. So the first trick with Mile High is to find books in near mint. And not every book they have in their back catalog is in near mint. So you have to kind of understand that. And let's find one. And we'll take a look here. And so we're just scrolling through. Nothing here on this page that are near mint. We'll keep going, 174 to 183. And so this is typically what I'm doing. I'm just sitting here at the computer, and I'm just scrolling and scrolling, going, I wonder if I should get that one. I don't know. Maybe, is it a key, right? So here's 182. And we do not have 182 in the spreadsheet. So let's do this. So I'm going to add a new row. And I'm just going to grab the one before it, Control D, and the numbers will skew a little bit, but that's okay. We'll fix that. So issue 182. And let's see, I don't believe 182 is a key. I'm looking up in Key Collector. So Key Collector does not mark this as a key. I use Key Collector as a designation I'm not ready to debate whether or not Key Collector is the keeper of all keys. It's just a data reference point. It's just something for me to keep track of. So I do not indicate that it is a key. I don't do anything with that value either. I don't say that this is more of a priority because Key Collector says it is. I don't buy into that. It's just for informational purposes only. I want to be very clear about that. Okay, Amazing Spider-Man 182. So I looked this up in cover price. And the raw book is $10.38. And again, that's important because I don't want to be price gouged by Mile High on a raw book, especially on a book that doesn't have a lot of value. The cover price, CGC 9.8, again, it's $156. I could get in here and start to break down cover price grading across, but again, I'm trying to also maximize my time. I want to plug in this data, I want to determine what books to buy, and I want to get out. So in this case, this is my only view. They show 9.8 as a $156 value, and I plug it in and I move on. Go Collect, Amazing Spider-Man 182. Oh, the other thing is the release year, so 1978. So that's important too, to fix that, because that will shift the era. Okay, back to Go Collect. So be careful here with this 99 at the top. We're only tracking 989694. Okay, so I grab the URL because I'll copy that into the spreadsheet. 98 is 130, 160. 130, 160. And I'll just link this again so I can refer back. So again, you're looking at the drop off. So interesting here, look at 166. The 96 for that one is 100, and for 182 is 100. But the 9.8 for 166 is $90 more. So again, very interesting data to me. Now if we go to GPA on 182, again, this is what people kind of use as their price guide. So I always want to include GPA analysis. Again, I'll grab the URL. So a 9.8, they're saying it's currently $185, which is above Go Collect. And cover price is actually, I would say, kind of the average between Go Collect and GPA. I'll paste that link in there. And let's see what a 9.6 goes for. And this is where you have to make a little bit of a judgment call. The 12-month, there is no 90-day, which is, that's the first value that I use. Second value, I'll look at a 12-month or I'll look at last sale and kind of just decide. You know, it's $74 versus $84 is probably not going to make or break all of my analysis, but I prefer to have a higher quantity of sales. Like this is just the last sale, so 1, where this is 4. So I'm going to go with $84 over 12 months as my GPA 9.6, so 84. And then same thing for 9.4, so 84 and 52. And then the cost on Mile High for this book, for 182, is really high, $113. And let me grab the URL here. I'll just grab the individual. And let's see, is that a fair price? So with the discount, that's a $45 book. Now, I have the buy priority column kind of hidden from your view because I'm going to talk about it and kind of ask you, what do you think that's going to be in the priority? Is it going to be a high priority book to seek out? If we look at 9.4 in GPA, it's $52. Here's a $45, book raw. So again, $52, it comes in that CGC slab. $45, it does not. So I think you kind of know where I'm going with this. I'm going to predict that when we reveal the buy priority column, this is going to be low on that list. And there it is. It's 11. It's actually the lowest. So as you're scrolling through Mile High going, let me get some Bronze Age Spider-Man, 182 is not a book that you should pick up from Mile High. It just doesn't make sense. There's too much risk. There's too many negative columns here. The potential gain if it's a 9.8 is only $85, And I say only 85. I mean, it's still 85 bucks, but when you're looking at 123, 208, 200, 329, it's not worth the risk, because if that book is only a 9.4, you have lost money. Right here, you've lost $19.57 based on the market. Now, if you're looking at the scale, that's a little bit of a different story. It's saying that it's undervalued. Again, that's where if you really wanted ASM 182 slabbed, you could get a good deal on a 9.4. You could get it for around 50 bucks. That might be, worthwhile just to seek that out slabbed. So that's the reason I'm doing this, is to figure out what are the books that are for sale at Mile High, and which ones should I prioritize purchasing versus books that I should ignore. Now, you can use this formula for any source. I'm using Mile High because they have the most inventory, and also I can consistently expect, on average, consistently expect those books to be in a 9.4 raw value. You want to do one more? Let's take a look. Let's try and find one more. 183 at 113. I don't have that one in there. I kind of feel like that one's also a little overpriced. I want to find one that maybe has a little bit of better value. And a lot of times I'll cheat and I'll go to Key Collector and see if there's any other keys here that I'm missing. 184, 183. We could do 183 while we're here. Let me just do a quick scan, see what else they have. 189. Yeah, they're not going to have. I've done some of these here. How about the low 200s? No. Let's try 183, since 183 is listed as a key here in Key Collector. Let's go ahead and do 183 and see where that sits. I still feel like, if I'm guessing, because I've just done this for a little while now, that 183 too is going to be overpriced at Mile High, but I could be wrong, right? This is why we're going through this exercise. So $12.20 is the cover price raw, and we get the release year is 1978, so it's still in the Bronze Age. It is a key, and we're saying that based on cover price, $12.20. The cover price CGC is 170. So maybe I'm wrong. It's already above 182 in terms of value. The Go Collect 9.8 for 183, 160, 75, and 65. 160, 75, 65. So $30 more than the previous book. And now lastly, GPA on 183. All right, so now no 90-day average. Last sold for $204 in June of 2021. 12-month average of 146 trending up. So this is where it's a little tricky, because I would maybe say that the market value is 204, but again, it's that one sale versus 11 in the past 12 months at 146. So it's 146 trending up, but I'm just going to, again, to be fair, plug in 146, which is interesting. It's a lot less than 182. And then a 9.6 for 79, and then a 9.4 for, I'm going to, again, looking at, there are more sales of this over the 12 months than last 90 days, so 79 and 63. Okay, so 182 and 183 are going to be about the same then. And again, the price on this is $113. Where'd it go? 183. Oh, previous page. There it is. Capture this at 113. All right, so there it is on the priority, and it's just ahead of 182 because of some other factors, and I think it's because of just the slight difference in the cover price raw being a couple of dollars more. I think it just edged it out. But again, these are two books that you don't really want to seek out from Mile High. It's overpriced here. You're better off buying a 9.4 slab if you can find it for as cheap as possible, around that $60, $65 or $52, $63 range. I'm curious though. I wanted to find a book that might be a little bit higher in the buy priority here. All right, so let's try this. Let's go with this book. I just found this on Mile High. So here is ASM 212 for $188. This, according to Key Collector, is a key. First appearance and origin of Hydro-Man. Now, these books spiked with Spider-Man Far From Home, thinking that the elemental villains were going to make a first appearance, and we know that story. But this should, I would say, again, if I'm looking at the spreadsheet and I'm just guessing, it should fall somewhere in the middle of my buy priority. And so I wanted to get a book here that wasn't necessarily just falling off the bottom, so you can kind of see the difference. So this will be the last one that we do. I'm going to clone the record, so I get all those formulas coming in relative to this row 7. ASM 212, the release year on this one, 1981. So we're still in the bronze era there. So you can see it's falling between 1970 and 1984. So that automatically fills in bronze. Key Collector is saying it is a key. The cover price raw on this one is $32.39. So the second most on this list so far. Cover price CGC, $343. And let's flip to Go Collect. So this is 212. And fair market value on this one, $293. Let's plug that in. $293. And then the drop off for 9.6, $129 and $93. GPA on ASM 212. It's trending down, and again, that's understandable, but the last sale was actually up at $350. But we'll take the $313 GPA. And then look at the drop off here in GPA. So 9.6, it's actually up 139, and then up here 105. So GPA and Go Collect, again, it's kind of random, but they're actually more in line and about the same values. Cover price, that must be a recent sale average or something, 90 day, 60 day, or 30. I don't know how this is calculated. It's not disclosed. 343 is probably trending more toward that recent sale 350. Again, it's all kind of factored in as a nice average, saying that the average of a 9.8 should be around $316 for this book. Now, Mile High is selling this book for $188 near mint. Okay, so with the discount, it's $75 investment. All right, so before I reveal the updated bid priority column, what's your guess here? So it's a $75 investment. The GPA 9.4 is 105. So when you factor in that CGC slab cost, it's pretty much the same. It's about $100. Go Collect is saying it's less. But if you look at the 313 here, the 293, 343, 9.8 values, averaging 316, you can see that it has some potential. So if you're able to get this book and it come back at a 9.8, there's a lot of potential profit. So I'm guessing that this is book 13 on the list. I'm guessing this is probably somewhere around a 7 or an 8 on the priority. Okay, do you have your guess? Let's take a look. It's 5. Interesting. Okay, so not too far off, but this is book number 5 in that list. it had kind of a, I would just say from an experience perspective, it did feel like $75 for a bronze key, high grade, first appearance of a villain. It did feel like it had the potential to be a book that I would want to target, but didn't see it as top five. So that's great. This is good information to have. Looking at the data, it takes some of the emotion out of it too. You're like, okay, the buy priority says that I shouldn't really target the first Silver Sable here, ASM 265. It's telling me that it's number 9 out of 13 right now in this list. But you know what? I think Silver Sable's going to be a character that comes on the screen either via Sony or the Marvel MCU, and I'm just going to buy it. Right? That's an emotional purchase. That's FOMO and those other things. This list helps take the emotion out and gives you more of a systematic way of looking at books and looking at values. And again, you can use this design and this analysis for any source. It doesn't necessarily have to be Mile High Comics. You could use this same structure and do your own analysis with eBay, Comic Link, Midtown, Things from Another World, anywhere where you can find books. It doesn't have to necessarily be older back issues. You can look at moderns. But the reason I'm using Mile High, again, consistency with their 9.4s and just the amount of backlog catalog that they have, as well as the books to have typical value in, I would say, the churn of analysis for graded copies. There's just a lot of data to look at in terms of pricing and price history, whereas a book that came out last year, probably pretty volatile in the market. It's a lot of up and downs, but you can have more sources to purchase those books from. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully it's looking at maybe a way for finding books and purchasing books, again, with less emotion, more specific analysis, looking at where you're spending your money, how you're spending your money, and looking at real gains and potential profits with books that you're buying, and less FOMO, which is what we all kind of want to get to, is just don't want to fear missing out. We definitely want to be more strategic with our purchasing and align those to speculation and keys in the market, and hopefully find some really good books to buy and add to your collection. That's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Happy collecting, and see you next time.